Hi, this is Basil Green, and I'd like to welcome you again to another video of mine. I got a word of encouragement to you. This is a reminder of something I shared sometime last year about certain things that God was doing. It concerns the door of destiny that God has set for all of us. This is the words that I got this morning. Just remind him of the door of destiny. Now, this is the story that God reminded me of, the story of Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau are twins, and what ended up happening between Jacob and Esau was that when Esau came home, he asked Jacob to give him some food. Then when Jacob gave him the soup that he was cooking, but before that could happen, actually, Jacob told him to sell him his birthright. So Esau agreed. He made a very rash decision, and he sold the birthright to his brother Jacob. Fast track later on into the story, Jacob ends up going to pretend like he was his brother when it came time for his father to release the blessing upon Esau. So he deceived his father so that he could get the blessing from his father. And his mother had promised him that nothing will happen to him. Why? Because she said she was gonna take the rap for everything. She had confessed that God was gonna make all of that consequences fall on her. So Jacob walks away with the blessing. He goes into a place where his uncle lives and ends up marrying one of his first cousins. So hey, I don't think God would have allowed it that time. So cousins don't make dozens. Children come out deformed in some of these relationships. So I personally wouldn't date my cousin or marry my cousin, especially like first cousins and all that. So most of the cousins I know, I wouldn't do that with. But Jacob decided he was gonna wait and stay there because he was running away from his brother Esau. And he ends up marrying one of his first cousins, in fact both of them his first cousins. And he decides that he was gonna wait. Why he wasn't gonna wait? Because his uncle made him marry the wrong woman. So when he married the wrong woman, he realizes that he was deceived by his uncle, because his uncle tricked him. He wanted the younger sister, he was given the older sister. And then afterwards, he said no, he's going to wait for another 7 years so that he can marry the younger sister. And then he ends up doing that. But in that time, he also experiences a lot of deception from his uncle, a lot of underhanded tactics, where he's even complaining that his uncle changed his wages like more than 10 times. So that's one of the tricky things about Jacob's life. Why? Because he was experiencing the consequences of his actions. So his mother never gave him the right direction. His mother never gave him the truth that each person will bear the consequences of their own wrongdoing, their own sins. So in the natural, she may have wanted to do something for him. However, the spiritual consequences do fall on the person that has transgressed. Why am I sharing this? There's something very important here to learn. You know, when Jacob was about to leave, now he was leaving, in fact, his uncle catches wind that Jacob has gone. So he chases after him because one of Jacob's wives steals their father's gods. So he chases after him, and the uncle has a dream, and God tells him, don't do any harm to this man yet that you're trying to chase after. So his uncle only tells him, okay, he wants to get those gods. He never end up getting him because they hid the gods away from him. Now, when Jacob gets to a specific part, he decides, okay, he wants to meet with his brother. He knew, no, hey, he wants to reconcile with his brother. So he sends a team forward, and there was a team that was left behind. And at a specific place, he has an encounter with an angel. And he starts to wrestle with this angel, and he wrestles and he wrestles. Now, as he's wrestling with this angel, he's telling the angel, I'm not going to let go of you until you bless me. And the angel ends up touching his hip, and he ends up with a limp. And then the angel tells him, now your name is going to be Israel. So basically, God was telling him, your identity is not a deceiver, because the name Jacob means deceiver. Your identity now is going to be a prince with God. So we find that many people try to enter into their prosperity, into their success, into things using the very same channel that Jacob used. Basically to pretend that you are somebody else in order to get that person's birthrights or that person's destiny, whatever it is that God has given to that person. Now God is saying, you don't need to do this. I'm going to paraphrase the words of David. He said to God, all my days are written in your book. And he was saying this here, that all the days were written in God's book while he was not even here on the earth, before he existed. So God had a plan. Same applies to you, same applies to me. God has a plan for us. God has a plan, and it's written in his book. And part of that plan is for us to walk in success. So God designed us for success. God designed us to prosper. God designed us to make him look good. I'm recording from a phone, and if this phone does not do what it's supposed to do, then the manufacturer doesn't look good. The same applies with you and I. When you do not do what you have been designed to do, God does not look good. That is why the enemy sets us on a different path. That is why he causes us to move in the wrong direction. And this is why we need to find out what is written in our book. There's no need for us to actually pretend to be somebody else in order for us to achieve success. Why? Because there's something specifically reserved for us. It's behind the door of destiny. Now, why am I saying the door of destiny? Because there's a door of deception. In the time I was praying, I was calling it the door of truth. Now, God has opened up more, and that there is a door of destiny. Whenever I see somebody doing what Jacob was doing, now you'll be able to sense that this person is trying to enter into something using the same part that Jacob used. And this scripture will come to mind: all your days are written in his book. So that is like a counter to stop that. Why? Because God uses keys in order to shut doors and in order to open up doors. And as a believer, as a son in the kingdom, you are given those keys so that you can shut that door and you can open up that door of destiny using the specific keys that God has shared with you. Now, that door was shut when we were praying. Now I'm coming to remind you that that door will remain shut. It will not open, especially not on my watch, and not in the territory that God has given to me. It will not open. Not because I've been trying to be nasty, but because it is the heart of God for you to walk out what is written for you. God said about Jacob, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. Now that is a lesson for us. God hated what Esau did. But it doesn't mean that God loved the fact that Esau gave up his birthright, or that Jacob received the birthright. It was the heart's desire that Jacob had. He cherished the birthrights. You and I need to cherish our birthrights that we received from the Father above. We mustn't scorn it. We mustn't sell it out for anything. So we must protect it, and we mustn't give up our own birthright. So now we come to David. David and Saul were kings. And David was the one that replaced Saul. We find that David's destiny was different to Saul. Why? Because if you read the story of Saul, he went through a different path than David. And that's why I believe David wrote, all of my days are written in your book. So now when Jacob was coming out of that encounter with an angel, he was also being taught to rely upon God for the blessing. So he relied on his mother and he relied on his own deceptive tactics that would have helped him to receive the blessing. Now God was saying, okay, I am cleansing that. And now I am shutting that door and I'm opening up a new door. Now remember, the door of deception is coming from the diabolical realm. And Jacob had to go through certain consequences in order for him to learn his lesson. God has to develop character inside of us. So now he comes to this encounter and he realizes, okay, I'm not a deceiver. This is not my identity. My identity is Prince with God. Because the name was changed. The nature was changed as well. After that period that God had to take him through, that nature was changed, and now he was walking differently. Hence the limp. He was starting to walk differently. This is a true thing. God is in the business of changing our lives. God is in the business of changing our lives, and he wants us to get what he has written for us in his book. And I believe that many people have gone down the wrong path, and now God is saying, I want to rescue these people. I'm going to send my angels. Many have been wrestling, This morning when I was meditating on this revelation, I just realized that Jacob's wrestle was a wrestle to say, I'm not going to submit to you. I want this blessing. So the angel had to touch his hip and cause him to walk with a limp, so that he can become the person that God wanted him to be. It is not an easy thing, I guarantee you, to come into alignment with the will of God, because the flesh fights it. But we mustn't go through the door of deception. That door is closed. Don't try to go through it. And if you have already, you're going to find yourself getting pulled in a new direction. Some people are going to lose their jobs. Why? Because they went through the door of deception. Some people, their businesses are going to close. Why? Because they went through the door of deception. Some are going to have ministries closed. Why? Because they went through the door of deception. And God is going to change their lives. And a lot of things are going to be starting to take place. And God is going to change the direction of their lives so that they can come into what He has destined them to be. So we are truly coming into a place where God is going to set us in a motion where we are going to start to experience all that God has written in His book. Remember that David had to go through a period of hardship. And I know sometimes when we're going through periods of hardship, it's like, God, why am I going through this? And then the Lord has to remind us, all of your days are written in my book. So, and we might feel that other people got a better destiny than us. No, they don't. Your destiny in God is holy. Your destiny in God is for glory. Your destiny in God is to make God look good. And God will allow you to be successful, to do what He has created you to do. Why? Because He wants to look good. So we are engineered to succeed at what God has created us to do. So we are engineered. We cannot fail if we allow the Lord to take us down that path where we are walking towards our destiny. So what is meant for you is going to come to you. What is designed for you is going to come to you. I've been also sensing that promotion does not come from the east. It does not come from the west. It comes from God. It comes from the Lord. That is where God will set you in the place that He has destined you to be, so that you can make Him look good. So when you're not doing what God wants you to do, what God has created you to do, you are not fulfilling the purpose for which you have been created. So God has to set you in that motion and set you in that path so that you can become the person you are destined to be. These are exciting news. Sometimes we receive very bad news, and many times I get warnings. I had to point out certain things that are coming, and I don't like that because some people don't receive it well. But this is something very good for you. Why? Because God is going to release what He has given to you. The blessing of the Lord makes one rich and adds no sorrow to it. It is the Father's delight that He should give you the kingdom. So He is happy to do these things for us. Why? Because He loves us. So I want you to stay blessed, and you should honor the Lord, and you should continue pursuing Him. This is Basil Green speaking, and until next time, goodbye.